Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
With your hosts.
Welcome to Life Well Livee by Omobola Stephen. On the show, we like to share profound insights on topics and subjects that is related to personal development and self-improvement, also tending towards spirituality. We've come to realize the importance of embracing personal development and self-improvement in the course of our lives, because while we embrace such, we get to find ourselves along the path, and in finding in ourselves, realize there's so much innate potentials and possibilities that life has in store for us if we don't give up. Now, personal development and self-improvement is not going to happen overnight. It's a constant effort that you and I need to put on in order for us to see our life transform from where it is to where it ought to be. This is the focus and the mission of Life Well Livee by Omobola Stephen. We like to share constructive yet destructive life mind-shift conversations that is going to transform your life from where you are to where you need to be. Today, I have Robert Hunt, who is an executive coach. And thank you once again, Robert Hunt. We also call you the accountability guy. Welcome to Life Well Livee by Omobola Stephen.
Thank you so much. You're so cool. I love the way you're looking at this, that it's going to be constructive, but it has to be disruptive. And I think that's so smart. And so I'm excited to be on your show today.
Absolutely. So excited to have you on the show. You know, the headline, accountability guy, that sounds so much interesting to me. I really want to know, what's in store for my audience, when I introduce you as the accountability guy. So that's what we'll be talking about today, just tending towards accountability in life, and also talking a bit about overload, which is also a very important topic to address in such a very changing times that we are in this life. So what does it mean to be accountable in life?
Yeah, and the simplest definition of accountability means you own it. And if we look at everything in our life and we think about all the things that go wrong all the time and all the things we face that are challenges, we have a choice. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. So in life, when things come up that you see you're now accountable for, maybe you weren't aware of it before, but life has a way of disrupting our own patterns and the way we were going about things. And also we realize, hey, this is my deal. This is my area of responsibility. I'm accountable for this. We have the opportunity to either own it or to play a victim role. And nobody says, oh, I want to be a victim. Nobody says that, but we act like that. And it's very subtle the way we do it. We don't even recognize that we're doing it. Let's say you and I had a podcast this morning scheduled at 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, you're not ready. Because that happens. Life happens, right? Well, what do? We say, well, this thing didn't work. Or that's an excuse. Or we blame, this thing, I overslept, my alarm clock didn't go off. Or we say, well, I can't handle all these things I'm doing. And I start to make excuses for why my life is going. And then we just figure it's not working out. So we just kind of stick it, we get through it, and we wait and hope that tomorrow will be better. And we have this pattern we go through all the time, but all it does is keep us in a victim role. If we stop and we own it, and we go, look, this happens every time. What am I going to do differently in my life to own this? I'm late for work every day. Every day there's traffic. So if you're late for work because of traffic, what are your options? Get up an hour earlier. But we don't get up an hour earlier because we stayed up super late watching Netflix till 11:30 at night or later. And then we're so tired that we can't get up, and then we don't go to the gym. Then we don't have health. And there's a ripple effect and all these things that we don't own. But if I own it, and I look at my life and I say, this is what I want my life to look like. And I do everything working backwards towards that thing. I make conscious decisions to do or not do things, but I own it. I'm not a victim of my circumstances. There's no one to blame. There's no excuse to make. And there's nothing that you can say that is, I can't. It's you owning it and doing something about it. That's accountability.
Robert, you honing it. It sounds as if life is expecting us or expecting too much from us. Don't you think so? And now is accountability not expecting too much?
How do you define expecting too much? Because what do you expected in life? Are you going to be a victim in life, or are you going to own your life? When I was a little boy, my dad beat me. My dad beat my mom. I watched him beat my mom in front of me many times, and he beat my family. And I grew up in a very scary home that was very poor. And I could have grown up and been a guy who beat his kid. But I looked at that and said, I don't want to be a guy who beats his kid. My dad had anger issues. He checked himself into a mental hospital a couple times. He had a hard life, but I'm not going to be him. And so you make a choice. Is it too much to expect that I grow up to be a guy who doesn't beat his kids? No. I made a choice to seek God for healing, to ask Him to change my heart, to teach me what it is to have love. I have love from my Heavenly Father that I never got from my earthly father. And so I made a choice to go in a different direction than what my father did. And so in my own life, I have faced unemployment, bankruptcy, divorce, all kinds of challenges. But every time that something comes up, I have to make a choice. Am I going to be a victim here, or am I going to own this? So I don't think it's too much to ask, because it's your life. You get to decide what you want your life to be. I don't want mine to suck. So I make choices against that.
Absolutely. Now you make choices. But I'd like you to tell my audience, at what point do you decide it's time for me to begin to have a mind shift?
I think for me, it was, and it's for most people I've met, when the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you have to go, you'll change. A lot of times we call that rock bottom. And if you're an alcoholic and you've been arrested for DUIs and you've lost your job and you've got divorced and you've got no money, you might be at the bottom and you might be in the streets and, okay, I'll get help. I don't want to wait till my life is in the toilet to get help. I want to do something now when I'm frustrated. And so in our book that we wrote called Nobody Cares Until You Do, we tell the stories in our lives. My co-author Salem Thine and myself, we share our stories. We're very vulnerable. He talks about committing suicide or trying to, and it didn't work, thank God. And I talk about how I owed $90,000 in debt, and it was killing our marriage, and we had to do something about it. And so we tell these stories to be vulnerable and talk about the challenges we face, to let people know that we've been where you're at and we've had to make hard choices. But the pain of the life I was living was so miserable that I didn't want to live that way anymore. And so I decided I need to own it and do something about it.
But some people really they confuse accountability for responsibility.
Yes.
Are we not saying the same thing?
No, responsibility is doing something, accountability is doing the thing. Let's say I work for you and I show up at work. If I show up at the time you asked me to show up, that's responsible. And if I show up and sit at my desk like you pay me to do and I answer the phone, that's responsible. But if I'm rude to people and I don't pay attention and I don't follow procedures and I'm rude to other employees and I don't care and I let things fall behind, I'm not taking accountability for the quality of the work I do while I'm with you. So although I might be doing something responsible, I'm not doing the thing, which is what I was really hired for, which is to deliver a good service to the customer, to be a good employee and care for people in my world, to have a good attitude and to care for the business. That's accountable. I'm accountable for the outcome. I'm accountable for the result, not just the effort I put into it. That's responsible.
But really, you talk about the workplace. I want us to talk about that a bit, especially for leaders in this case, who we often find it very challenging. Looking at them to be accountable, especially in the workplace. I also like us to tend towards the family unit. We always want probably the parent, our father, our mother, to be accountable. How easy is this to handle? Because they're all leaders. Even the parents are leaders in the home,
Yeah.
and also your own leader is a leader in the workplace. So how can we begin to undo this situation or find a way of making things better?
Nobody can hold anyone accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable. So you have to create an environment where someone wants to be accountable. I can't make you do anything. As an employee, I can't make an employee do anything. I could fire them, but then I'm the one being accountable because I fired them. They're still unaccountable and they're leaving, going to somewhere else. And as a parent, even though you're responsible, let's say you're a dad and you got someone, let's say you got someone pregnant and you didn't marry her and there's a baby out there and there's the baby mama. Let's say you're responsible and you pay money. So you're paying your child support, you're being responsible, but you're not investing in that kid's life. You don't love his mama or her mama. You're not showing that child what it is to be a loving father who marries a woman and cares for the child and is at the baseball games and prays at night, tucks him into bed, and shows love by the way he loves his wife. You're not being accountable. You're just doing the bare minimum you have to do. And the only thing that will change that is when people have a vision of a life that they really want. And when you have a vision of your life that you want, it's like seeing the end picture and working backwards. That's why in our book, we have people take a satisfaction assessment where you declare in writing how satisfied you are with your life. And if you're not satisfied, why? And what are you going to do about it? And that's where the journey begins. Do I make blame? Do I make excuses? Do I say I can't? Do I wait and hope it gets better? Or do I acknowledge nobody cares unless I do? And then when I do and I own it, I have this journey of fixing it, creating a reality check that allows me to embrace the suck. It's going to be hard to fix this problem and to make a solution and to get it done. All that is in the book that we outline because we want to give you the tools to be accountable, but it's all up to you. You have to want that because you want a life that you don't have right now.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about overload. I know they are both interwoven, talking about accountability and overload. So what happens when a person overload themselves?
You know, we all live on overload at some extent or another in your time, in your finances, in your health, and in your emotions. And we don't recognize overload because we do it so often. We live in overload. We overbook our calendars, we overbook our finances, we have debt, and all this stuff affects our ability to make good decisions. We don't get a good night's sleep. We don't eat healthy. We party too much. And then all this stuff is eating up our emotions. So we treat people poorly, which then affects relationships. There's this whole ripple effect that's caused by overload. Overload is ignoring the fact that everything in life has a limit. Your time has limits, your money has limits, your health has limits, and so does your emotions. And so we don't live with a recognition that there's a limit. So we just constantly push past it. And when we're in overload, we don't make good decisions. We are rude to people. We live in anxiety. Our mental health is diminished. All these things are eaten up because we live in overload. And I watched myself live in overload for a lot of years. And it wasn't until I created margin, room for the unexpected in life. So if I don't book my time where the whole day is completely full, and if anything goes wrong, everything explodes and falls apart. I don't live my finances so that I'm so far in debt like I used to be, that if one thing goes wrong, if the dishwasher breaks, no more dishwasher. If the car breaks, I got to take the bus. I don't live a life like that because I put myself in a place that causes emotional stress. The time, the money, and the health all eat at the emotions. And anytime you're on overload in any of these categories, they're all draining out the emotional bucket. And when you are on overload for your emotions, you break down, you have mental breakdowns, you go crazy and yell at people, you make really bad decisions, you feel depressed. And we're living lives like this, but we keep creating it by working on overload.
Thank you for sharing that perspective with my audience. But really, how can we begin to address overloading? Can we begin to consider work-life balance? Do you think it's a respite?
I don't think there's any such thing as work-life balance. You'll never achieve it. And I don't know that it's even healthy to try to do that because if my son or daughter needs me, I'm going to tell work, hey, my kid's sick today. I'm going to stay home with them and I'll call and I'll check in. And if they don't like that, I'll go get another job somewhere else. But again, back to accountability, we would say, well, I can't say that. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You just don't want to because you have a job that doesn't respect you, or you haven't earned the right for them to give you that kind of freedom because you haven't shown up and been accountable. You've been responsible. You've done the very least you had to do to get the paycheck. You haven't been a team player where they trust you enough and see the value. So therefore, when you need to stop working to care for your family member, they don't want to do it. But I want to be able to make choices to live a life with a margin because I want to be able to be there for my family. I want to be able to care for them. And I think that's where you make a decision of what your life is going to look like. And you have to own it. Again, back to accountability. They are connected. The desire to not live on overload, the desire to pursue the life I want, is going to be driven by the decisions I make, which allow me to be able to do that. And that's where accountability comes in.
That's some tough work, Robert. I know you agree with me. Now, moving away from the leader in the workplace, talking about the family, because we also consider this very important. And focusing on overload, you have a setting where the parent, especially the husband, is the one who bears most of or majority of the family expenses. So, how do you think he is going to be able to strike a balance to achieve optimum, respite concerning his own mental wellness and also his emotional wellness? Because now you still talk about accountability, which is very important, but how can we really address this?
I would love to have more conversations with people that are in real life situations and talk about what it looks like in each person's situation. But I have seen that in all situations that I've come across so far, you have to be able to make a decision of what you're going to do in your life and then stand by that. So it really does come back to, again, that vision of your life. If you are at a job that doesn't pay you enough, you have to go find a different job. Well, I can't. This is all I'm qualified. Well, then what else could you do? Could you get trained? I don't have time. Could you do it at night? We keep finding excuses as to why we can't do something. But if we're not living the life we want, we've got to make a plan because it doesn't get better on its own. And so you're never going to achieve a work-life balance, but you can set limits in what you do so that you can be there pursuing the life you want. And if you're the main breadwinner for your family, you're going to be at work, called to do work, going to work, coming back from work, and you're going to have those responsibilities. But it doesn't mean you still can't care for your kids. You can't take a phone call when they call. You can't stop to check in on them. You can't take a half day from time to time to go to their baseball game. We get to decide what we do with our lives. And yes, it's hard, but it's also hard to stay life as a victim. I've lived as a victim and you're miserable, but it might be hard to find another job or to get trained or to go do this. Yeah, life is hard, but you have to own it so that you can get the outcome you're looking for. Did I answer
I
that
think
well?
that, of course, definitely. Can you just tell us a bit about your book, Nobody Cares? Now, I really love the title of the book. Can you share a bit about that and how we can access that?
Yes, the book is called Nobody Cares Until You Do, and it's about accountability and our stories that we teach you how to be aware where you play the role of a victim and how to move past that. And that book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and Target and all those places you can buy a book. But you can also buy it from us at nobodycaresbook.com. And if you go to our website, you can have videos to watch that tell about each chapter. You can download 2 chapters of the book for free, and you can take the satisfaction assessment for free. We want to help you. We want to challenge you to really think about your life and create a vision of what you want. So we give you that assessment for free on our website, and we don't take your personal information. We just want you to have it. But then you could send me a note in the contact form and say, hey, here's my satisfaction assessment, and here's what I'm doing, and I'm reading the book, and here's what I'm learning. I would love to talk to people as they read the book because we want to change people's lives. It's not about selling books, it's about changing people's lives. So we want to be on the journey with you.
Absolutely. Thank you once again, Robert Hunt, for sharing this with my audience. Do you have another exciting news? Or perhaps you have a project you think it's going to be super beneficial to the audience. You can share that with my audience now.
Yes, we had our first 2 workshops so far this year, and we're doing it in person. We have people who've read the book and said they love it, but we're not seeing them apply it to their lives at the level that we hoped they would. And so we want to start doing workshops around the world. So we're looking for places in anywhere who would have us come out and present the principles of accountability to their company, to their church, to their civic group, to their community, whoever wants to have us. If you'll bring a group of people together in the room, we'll come present the book of accountability and teach people how to change their lives. That's our exciting future. We think that the future of workshops is the way to do this because we get to talk to people and listen to them and answer their questions and help them right there that day identify the roles they play a victim in and how to become victorious in their life. And we like the idea of having workshops to do that. look at someone's eyes and I want to see what their heart is saying. I want to give them a hug and shake their hand. I want to listen to people and care for them in person. So I do a lot of video presentations for companies. If you'll buy a box full of books for your employees and have them read it, I'll jump on a Zoom call and do an overview with your team at no cost. I'm happy to do that if you buy them from me. But if we're going to do a workshop, I want to do it in person. I want to sit there and care for people and hear their stories. And virtual calls are not effective that way.
Sincerely wish you best of luck in all the projects that you embark upon, and especially in this future, this workshop that you are looking forward to having with the global audience. We wish you best of luck now and in subsequent ones. Thank you once again, Robert Hunt. You are an executive coach. You run the CEO groups in DFW. It's been Life Well Livee by Omobola Stephen. If you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of the show, you can do so on any cross promotion platforms or any podcast distribution platforms you bump into online, and do have a great time. Listen to the show. I always need you to stay safe at Tactics. Thank you, Robert. We had a great show.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being on your show.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode.